Welcome in to the latest episode of Betting the Pitch. I'm your host, the real underscore G Warner on Instagram, Patreon, Twitter, and on YouTube. This is the Sunday, November 10th episode of Betting the Pitch, going through the top five European soccer leagues and what's left of this schedule for this weekend before we head into the last international break of 2024. Best bets have been great. And what I do, end of show, I do an ultimate best bet where I collect my favorite bet from each of the leagues we're covering. Today, we're going England, Spain, Italy, France, and Germany in that order. Pick my favorite from each of the leagues. Pick one from all of them. We're 11 and 3 and 1 so far this season. So, not sure I expect it to be that good so far, but let's see if we can get to 80% on this episode. Thank you all for subscribing, doing all the things you're doing. New subscribers, of course, Joe Segredo coming back to the Patreon, patreon.com/the_G Warner if you want to get in and get my picks across all sports going right now, considering everything is live, it seems, besides the Major League Baseball season just ending. Also got some other shout outs to give later, so please stay tuned, stick around, and let's get into it. So from the English Premier League on Sunday, the 10th of November, we have three matches all at the 8 o'clock Central Time in the morning window. So it's only 9 hours from now, 9 o'clock Eastern Time, United States. Manchester United, a goal and a half favorite, will start us off at home to Leicester City. Over under is 3.25, and the juice is split both ways. So, I believe Ruben Amorim, the Sporting Lisboa or Sporting Clube de Portugal manager, will be taking over after the international break. So I don't think he's involved in this setup, even if he was. Not a lot of time to come into play after a victory over Manchester City for his former club in the Champions League midweek. Interesting move also to go, of course, to one of the biggest clubs, if not the biggest in the world, but then to also step down a competition when Sporting Clube de Portugal have been playing very, very well in Champions League. But regardless, Manchester United goal and a half favorite, all the juice on Leicester. We could see this fall down to 1.25. This is a rematch of a cup match, just a couple, I think, midweek last week. So 10 days or so ago. And this saw a 5-2 final. Manchester United scored a ton of goals. Leicester rotated their defense, but to me, it wasn't that big of a deal because their defense had been conceding a lot of goals. And it's one of the few overs that Manchester United has recorded at all this season. I think that speaks to the problems under Eric Ten Hag and really just the problems for how much money they spend on their team and how little they get from it on the goal scoring side of things. I think Leicester City have been pretty bad and pretty porous defensively this season. They've just been fortunate enough to score enough goals that they were able to keep it somewhat close, and they've been able to steal points late, including a win at Southampton, a draw at, I believe, Ipswich Town. One of the teams that's not good in this league. And Leicester are, let's not forget, a newly promoted side coming up from the championship division after winning it last season. So there's a lot to say about Leicester. I think I'm interested in the goal and a half just because I would love to be against the Manchester United offense. At home, it's probably going to be a little bit more difficult to find any goals for Leicester, though they've seemed to do it from time to time. My biggest interest in this one is definitely the under 3.25. Though I do like the side at 1.5 as well. I just think it's a combination of the two, and there's a lot of room when you get over 3 goals in any soccer match. Where I feel like it's like the NFL National Football League here in America, where totals above 50 are just really hard to reach, and I feel like any sort of total that it climbs above 3 will put me very interested as an under player on that under. We'll move next to Nottingham Forest hosting Newcastle. Looks like Forest are a slight, well, actually, Nottingham Forest and Newcastle have been moving back and forth about who was having the more juice at BetOnline SportsBetting.ag. There are links in the promo codes and promo codes in the podcast description, Apple Podcast, Spotify, and on YouTube. Wherever you're listening, go look in the description. There's free money offered at both SportsBetting.ag and BetOnline. Both are the same lines, same sister sites. And so if you have money at one and haven't deposited ever there at another, go take advantage of it and get some free money and use it against the casino. But Nottingham Forest are currently the less juiced pick 'em, despite being at home and being in the top regions of the table. Newcastle have had road problems for years and years, but they've got a ton of respect and a huge fan base that seems to bet them a lot, as they are one of the more popular teams, I feel, in English Premier League betting. Nottingham Forest on the other side, definitely a diehard crew and fan base. Just supporters for all these clubs are amazing and incredible and are so into their clubs. But The big question is what can Newcastle do away from home? And they're in a pretty tough spot coming off another great home performance, but they seem to do that regularly. They beat Arsenal, they drew Manchester City their last two big home matches, and then put up pretty dud type performances away from home, if I'm not mistaken. So I think we could see that here. I don't think that Nottingham Forest are priced correctly at Pick'em. I'll certainly be waiting to see if they climb to a quarter goal underdog before kickoff on Sunday morning here in the United States. But I don't necessarily think that'll happen. We'll probably stay pick 'em, and I think I'm still interested in that number. Total here is 2.5, just slightly more to under, and I think that reflects a Newcastle offense that's not very good away from home, and I'm not really even sure they're great at home either. Nottingham Forest have been able to find a ton of goals despite a very defensive manager, and really have just been riding a Chris Wood hot streak, which is incredible and unbelievable, and all those words. But at this point, riding hot hand, but also with the idea that it might end very soon, and he's probably not going to be able to just find a way into the net just like he does every single match forever. So Nottingham Forest plus, or I guess at a pick 'em right now, would love to get plus money on them. Not sure we'll see it, and lean to under 2.5 as well in that matchup. Next up, in the same time window, Tottenham Hotspur coming off a loss on the road in Turkey, on the road in Istanbul against Galatasaray in the Europa League. They host Ipswich Town. Currently, Tottenham a 2-goal favorite. With all the juice on Ipswich right now on the road. Over under is 3.75, just all the way to over. We probably see this hit 4, which is a gigantic total. I just told you how interested I am in playing unders when it's above 3. Never mind getting towards 4, and especially pushing on 4. That's a value players, I think, area to be, to say the least. And I think it's going to be, of course, very interesting to play and under there, though you're going to be holding your nose the whole time because Tottenham don't play defensive games, and Ipswich concede a lot of goals, newly promoted side that have not really looked like their defense was up to the Premier League snuff so far. I don't think I really want much to Ipswich getting 2 goals, though that's gigantic as well. If I had any sort of faith in them, I think I'd be interested in their +2 and the under potentially 4. Lean to both of those or in both of those directions, but we'll see if that ends up making it closer to my card. I can't say as I'm saying this right now live on this podcast, all of you beautiful people out there. I'm not sure I'm that close to playing much in that matchup. Last but not least, in the English Premier League for this Sunday, November 10th episode, we have Chelsea, a quarter goal underdog at home with all the juice. Over unders 2.75 with the juice all the way to the under, and they are hosting Arsenal. Arsenal just look like they've had a really tough run of games in both Champions League and the Premier League. They don't rotate, which is, I think, a flaw of Mikel Arteta. And they've been suffering from all these players going internationals, playing 2 matches in like 8 days, and then playing twice a week with Champions League and cup stuff. That's finally they get some rotation in, but clearly there's just too much stress on these players, and I think it's really reflecting in Arsenal not being able to score goals, yet they're favored in almost every match. I mean, incredible that they're a pick 'em on the road to the best club in Italy for many years running, where Arsenal are still trying to get out of square one and get out of ruts that they've been in for years. So that was nice to play Inter midweek, but now we're on to Chelsea, who I'm actually in the 80th minute right now, are up 8-0 in the Conference League, but playing their backup team against someone from Azerbaijan, I believe. It's amazing, or Armenia maybe. At this point, I think Chelsea are one of the more enigmatic teams in the Premier League. They've got great offensive talent. The defense is the biggest question, and Arsenal certainly can cause some problems there. And likely this might be a better situation for Arsenal because they're not. Chelsea aren't going to fear Arsenal. They're going to play aggressively on the front foot, Manchester City style against Manchester City style, with both former Pep Guardiola assistants that are leading both of these clubs. The difference is Chelsea are a home underdog. I think there's a good chance there's a result at home for Chelsea. I think they can very easily win this match, but a draw I think is a really nice other way to be profitable in this one. I didn't really expect to see a quarter of a goal. I'm glad to see it after Chelsea were an underdog at Pick'em for most of this week. I'm very interested in that price right there, and I lean to under 2.75 because I feel like it's a little bit of another way to take a derivative of fading the Arsenal squad right now, because they're not playing well. They are not impressive. Their defense is pretty good, which is a good way to see an under in any type of situation. But I think the biggest thing in my question, or biggest question surrounding this matchup, is how can Arsenal score? How efficiently can they do that? And when they're pushing forward, are they going to also leave themselves open to Chelsea having the actual attacking talent to potentially cause some problems? So for the English Premier League on this episode, where I pick one of my favorite bets from each of the leagues and then squash them all together for an ultimate best bet end of show, I'm going to go with that Chelsea getting a quarter of a goal at home. Too hard for me to resist. I'll move now to Spanish La Liga, where we go to Real Betis hosting Celta de Vigo, coming off Betis, an incredible last second winner in their own Conference League matchup. Not an 8-0 victory, to say the least, but Real Betis will take it any way they can. They are hosting Celta Vigo. They're half a goal favorite with all the juice on Celta over, and there's 2.5 juice all the way to over. So Celta started off the year really well, and it helped that they played multiple home games to get their year started, and they're always fighting relegation. We'll see if they drift back towards that type of area. But they had a really good home result also against Real Madrid. The problem is, I just said all their home results, and going away from home, they haven't really been scoring much. That's a concern. But I think the move from a quarter of a goal to this current half of a goal does interest me a fair amount. And I feel like Real Betis' offense is just not one we've trusted all season. They've been basically playing without a recognized striker this entire season. It's amazing that they've done as well as they have so far, but I don't really think that'll continue. So I'll put Celta on my list, getting that half of a goal. Quarter of a goal is probably too little, but I like the idea of a result away. Winning a full bet. Also lean to under 2.5, which might climb to 2 3/4 before kickoff on Sunday morning here in the United States. We'll move next to Mallorca hosting Atletico Madrid. Currently, Mallorca, a quarter goal underdog at home with almost all the juice. Over under is 2, and it's split both ways. Welcome to the low Atleti totals now. Incredible win to steal one late on the road at Paris Saint-Germain in Champions League midweek. Really big for confidence, though it's really the Atletico Madrid players of the past that have done it, not their new signings. And honestly, it was a brutal push on the under 3, but that's why we play those numbers and try to get the full goal of insurance to hit that 3 instead of land 3 when you have a 2 3/4 and lose half your bet. So I guess you got to take them and pushes our free movies, as my NFL co-host at A_Stinker likes to say. If you'd like to watch some pro football, American football talk, feel free to go just one episode sooner or more recent on this podcast network, and you'll see it Betting the Pitch on Apple Podcasts and on Spotify, and at YouTube. Go to at @TheReal_G Warner if you want to watch us in video full time. But Mallorca, a quarter goal underdog at home. That's where they play great football. They always play low scoring matches, so 2 is reasonable, but does feel fairly low for Atletico Madrid match just based on the squad talent. But they don't really score goals. They don't really do very well away from home. I think we might see a total Diego Simeone type of, despite all the money spent, we might just see a team that just tries to win every match 1-0. That fits for under here, doesn't fit as well for Mallorca, but also might give some late chances for Mallorca to tie if they do fall behind early. The biggest deal is when can Mallorca score? If they can score, if it's first, that'll put them in a really good position to win this matchup. So very interested in Mallorca getting that quarter of a goal. Also lean to under 2. A good way to fade Atletico Madrid before all their players go internationally abroad. And I think there's some focus on those trips that do impact the big teams heading into those breaks. Moving next to Getafe hosting Girona. Currently Getafe, a quarter goal favorite at home. More juice on Girona. Away from home, over under is 2. Juice all the way to under. Looks like this one might be heading to 1 3/4, which I don't want to wait and see that. I don't want to wait for our lives to be over. I don't want to wait for that game to go over when it lands 2 after falling to 1 3/4 as the lines would go if I was singing the song, but I won't sing for you. Especially because I feel a little nasally at the moment. Sorry if you're hearing that on the waves. But Getafe, they just haven't been able to score any goals this year. Everyone seems fortunate. They've had a bunch of totals below 2. Girona coming off a Champions League embarrassment, losing 4-0, getting a red card, player sent off, and just a lot of bad juju around the club right now. They've gotten some wins lately to keep the Michel hot seat cooler. I don't know if they would potentially sack a manager who got them to Champions League and then saw them have a disastrous run because they're in Champions League. But honestly, at this point, who knows? I think Girona as an underdog looks very interesting against a team that can't score, but I have no idea what this Girona lineup is going to look like. They're so banged up. They have the longest injury list I've ever seen, which probably speaks to not being prepared or I guess being having a squad list that's capable, filled with a bunch of young players and a bunch of old guys that can't really hack to Champions League level matches each week with La Liga, I guess, in addition to Champions League. So not too Champions League level, but you get what I'm saying. I lean to Girona getting that quarter of a goal, but I think I like under two more than anything in that one. We'll move next to Valladolid hosting Athletic Club Bilbao. Currently, Real Valladolid a half a goal underdog at home with slightly more juice. Over unders 2.25, and it's juiced very heavily or pretty heavily to under. Athletic Club with a tough fought victory with 2 goals and I think a minute on the road at Ludogorets in Bulgaria midweek. That's a long trip, I assume, coming back now to Real Valladolid, which is also can be very, very cold. Might feel like a summer's Sevilla derby day or something like that compared to Bulgaria. With that said, Valladolid, they've been really struggling to prevent goals. Newly promoted side in La Liga have been a yo-yo club going up and down to Segunda División, back to Primera over and over again. I don't think that changes this year. I like the idea of the home underdog, and I like unders involving Athletic Club because they're not likely to concede. But Valladolid seem to lose they lose every match 2-1, and that's not good for under. It's not good for the side. So I think I might just skip that one entirely. Moving to the last matchup of La Liga before we head into the international break, and before you get my pick for my best bet from this league, we'll go Real Sociedad, a half a goal underdog at home to Barcelona, not a Real club, I guess. Excuse me, not Royal, but they are Barcelona, and probably other than Manchester United, the other most popular club in the world, maybe more popular. Based on their setup. Over under here is 2.75, just almost all the way to over. So Real Sociedad getting a fair amount of respect. This one's been jockeying between 3/4 of a goal and a half. I think it'll go back towards 3/4, maybe even climb to one before kickoff. At +1, I think I'm more interested in Real Sociedad, but man, they just concede bad goals. They possess the ball a ton, don't score enough with it, and then leave themselves vulnerable. It's just a really bad combo. They're probably going to keep the ball a lot and try to keep it away from Barcelona, but it's hard to keep the ball and do much with it with a high line playing against you. I just feel like Hansi Flick has brought in a great defense for a bad Barcelona defense that hides them very well. He did it very well at hiding Bayern Munchen in the past, and I think it's worked very well for Barcelona as they're top of the table, thrashing Real Madrid, and just incredible stuff so far. We did see them incredibly overpriced in a home match with Espanyol, but of course that happened after a Clásico. They were great on the road at Venevesda this week, and this is going to be a tough test for them going back-to-back road games and going to San Sebastian. But I just don't think we've seen enough from Real Sociedad yet, and I don't really know that there's much here I want to mess with because I feel like Barcelona has had the Real Sociedad number, and I'm just not really looking to get involved with that, I must say. So for my best bet in La Liga, I'm going to go with that Mallorca under 2 goals at home against Atletico Madrid. We'll move now to Italy, and then we got French Liga and Germany, and for the last day before the international break to come. And then I'll remind, of course, everyone at the end of the show with my best bets from each league, and then make an ultimate best bet call to try to improve on 11-3-1 to start so far this year. It's been great. Let's keep it going. So in Italy, we'll start with an early matchup, 5:30 local time here in Dallas, Texas, at Atalanta, a 1.25 goal favorite with all the juice at home to Udinese. Over under is 3. Atalanta have looked awesome. Had a big win on the road at Stuttgart in the Champions League midweek. Beat Napoli last week. It's just been an incredible run. Great year for them. Gasparini's awesome. Might be the truth. Might be the GOAT. And Udinese were at one point in first place in Serie earlier this season. It's not gone so well since then. I don't know really what I want to play here. Udinese getting more than a goal is nice, but they can certainly lose by a lot. The push on 3 is valuable, especially if we see a bunch of totals like Juventus and Torino closing at 2 today. Wild for a Juventus total, but it's deserved. Atalanta are a little bit on the other side, but they play some defense too. I think if anything, I'm looking to the under 3 in this matchup, but I'm not sure it's going to be that close to my card, and probably won't be part of the ultimate best bet portion of the show coming just in a few segments. Roma then hosts Bologna, coming off a goal scoring draw on the road at Union Saint-Gilloise in Brussels midweek. Whereas Bologna lost another Champions League match, again didn't score. This time I think it was a home match to Monaco, if I'm not mistaken. But Roma, quarter goal favorite at home with all the juice over unders 2.25, juice pretty heavily to under. I want to make sure that I can watch this total and make sure I get it before it hits two. I think there's a good chance that it pushes there, which wouldn't be so bad. But I'd like to win some money on another low-scoring Roma match. As far as I know, Ivan Juric is still in the job. They've got to be making a change over the international break, I assume, but we'll see until it happens. Maybe Eric Ten Hag will float in there. Just kidding. I hope not for my Roma interest in a Champions League, Europa League pool, but no, I'm doing terribly in that anyway, unfortunately. Juventus, Leipzig, Roma, not really three great first or so choices. Young boys also just can't seem to hold on to a point. So that's gone about as swimmingly as it has for those clubs. But Bologna, I mean, they're not the same defense. They're not anywhere near the offense. They're not anything close, and they're struggling with Champions League. Not as injured as Girona, but they get to go to Roma, the Stadio Olimpico, and it should be. I mean, Bologna is a big city, so they've got a huge fan base. Should travel fairly well. Get extra rest because they play in Champions League days earlier. Yes, they go away from home, but that's a much better situation to be in just to play Roma now before they figure it out. So I'm interested in Bologna. I'd love to see them climb to a half a goal favorite. Excuse me, for Roma to climb to half a goal favorite to give the half of a goal to Bologna. So any road result will cover the bed full. But I'll play under 2.25 as my best bet in that matchup. We'll move next to Fiorentina hosting Verona. Same time, 8 a.m. Central Time. Oh man, there's a lot of early matches tomorrow, but welcome to post daylight savings time Sundays, I guess. Fiorentina currently a goal and a quarter favorite right now at home. All the juice on Verona away from home. Over under is 2.5, and it's juiced really heavily to over. Fiorentina did not play great in the Conference League midweek, but different scenario here. They'd won a million matches in a row. I think started with a Conference League win, and they've been playing very well. I don't think that Verona are a team to really step in the way of that. They are eventually going to struggle and fight relegation, and I think come out of it end of season like they did last year, and were pretty much just my cash cow to close the year. But I don't really think I want to fade Fiorentina at this point. I still don't think they're great, but I think they're a lot better at Verona. They're at home, and I think that's going to make their weary legs a little bit more energetic with the big crowd in purple behind them. Forza Viola. We'll move next to Monza hosting Lazio. Currently Monza half a goal underdog at home right now. Almost all the juice on Lazio away from home. Over under is 2.25, and it is juiced slightly more to over. I think from just a Lazio perspective, they're not really a side I want to fade right now. They've been playing very well. I look to back them as an underdog. With that said, they are a road favorite coming off a Europa League match heading into an international break. So for that reason, I'm into Monza getting a half of a goal and into the under 2.25 in that one. Last but not least, the big derby, Inter Milan hosts Napoli. Currently, Inter a half a goal favorite with all the juice. Over under is 2.5, and its juice is split there. Napoli coming off no international play because they played so poorly after winning their Scudetto, defended it by not even finishing in a European position. But they made a lot of changes, brought in Antonio Conte, and they look like a real threat to win the Scudetto. Now they go on the road to Inter Milan, coming off a very low-scoring 1-0 penalty-aided victory at home to Arsenal in the Champions League. Rest advantage to Napoli, crowd advantage to Inter. This should be a good matchup, and it looks like we might even see 3/4 of a goal. Would love to get Napoli +1. I think that's a pipe dream, but ultimately, I think Inter have not been at their best so far in Serie A this season. Maybe this is the time for it, but losses at home in their shared stadium to Milan, blowing a 4-2 lead to Juventus, and then really just not looking great in a lot of this competition, barely surviving Venezia last weekend. Champions League's been good, but they've got a long way to go in the league. And I think that is my biggest interest on this Italian card as well. I'm going to go with, instead of Napoli getting half of a goal, because that looks like that's climbing to 3/4, still interested there, but I'll play under 2.5 as my best bet in Italia. And we'll move to France before we get to the German Bundesliga and then the ultimate best bets coming end of show. We'll start with Nice hosting Lille. Currently Nice a quarter goal favorite at home. All the juice on Lille away from home. Over under is 2.25, juiced all the way to over. And this number's moved up a little bit. Lille were pick 'em for a while, getting plus money from when I last saw it at BetOnline, SportsBetting.ag. There are links and promo codes in the podcast descriptions. Nice with a good win in, or I guess felt like a win. I think they came from behind with 10 men to draw in Europa League and saw a bunch of goals, which is not something I expect from Nice matches. Anyway, I think Nice are. I mean, they've got a lot of respect and they spend a lot of money. They brought in a hotshot manager from Lens who's not really taken off. The offense hasn't done much. They haven't really improved. They went through a bunch of managers last season, and I wonder how long Frank Heist will survive, honestly. But Lille on the other side have been playing great. Got another draw result in Champions League midweek at home to Juventus. It's a home underdog. I mean, it's literally cash cow of think Verona from end of last season in Serie A, except Lille are everywhere. And the defense has been better than expected. They've got good, talented player. Jonathan David or David from Canada seems to finish every chance he gets. Just like there's a bunch of maple syrup on it. I got to say, Lille as an underdog is a course of interest, and I lean to under 2.25 as Nice. I just want to play against their offense as much as possible, and you get to do both in the same matchup. We'll move next to, especially with more legs advantage because Lille played earlier in Champions League, while Nice played on Thursday in Europa League. Le Havre then hosts the Stade Reims, because there's Rennes and there's Reims. Anyway, there's my French pronunciation attempt for this episode. Le Havre, a quarter goal underdog at home with all the juice. Over-unders 2.25, juice all the way to over. So Reims have been scoring a ton of goals. They could not do it last week. Took a really tough 1-0 loss. Very tough for your boy as well. And I got to say, Le Havre, they got to play one of the worst defenses in Liga, but really struggled to score goals against Montpellier. I think one on a penalty. It's hard to see Le Havre staying up this season, but they're doing okay so far. This is a big opportunity for them as a home underdog. I'm interested there and lean to under 2.25 because I think they're going to get the game they want to play as they're the home team. They're going to dictate it, but by dictating it, they're also going to give the ball away. I think the Rems a lot and let them control the game. So how you dictate the tempo, the pace by putting all your men behind the ball, I'm not sure that works very well. But I do like the home field advantage. I think this matters. It's a big, big opportunity for Le Havre. We'll see if they take it. Stade Rennais then hosts Football Club de Toulouse. Currently, Rennes a quarter goal favorite at home with all the juice. Over under is 2.25, juice all the way to over. So we probably see some goals in this matchup. Another low total, but we expect that in France at this point, as if it doesn't have PSG or Lyon involved, or maybe Saint Etienne, which we'll get to that big derby later as I'm wearing a practice kit from or practice shirt, whatever, from 2019, I think it was, when I was in Lyon. And should wear it proudly after a good performance this midweek, but we'll get to that in a second. Anyway, Rennes are a quarter goal favorite right now with all the juice. Over under is all the way juiced to over 2. So we might get 2.5. We might get a half of a goal. I think at a half of a goal, I'm interested in Toulouse. I trust them. I know they can score goals. Rennes have the reputation for scoring, but they haven't been able to do it for a while. They traded off a ton of their best talent. We see unfortunately, we've seen Jeremy Doku go to Manchester City, and I feel like Rennes haven't done a great job of replacing that talent in a while. They were known for building it all up, and it seemed to all come in at the same time a couple of years ago, but it's been pretty lacking, and I'm interested in Toulouse side getting that quarter of a goal. Once it gets to a half, I'll be more interested there. And I think I probably lean over 2.25. You're welcome to $1 as the first over of the podcast. Last but not least, in this 10 a.m. Central Time window, Montpellier hosts Stade Brestois. Montpellier, awful start to the season. Look like they seem to flirt with relegation every year. Maybe they can avoid it this year. And it does, of course, matter if you can finish in that 16th position and get to the playoff. But Montpellier, a quarter goal underdog at home to Stade Brestois, coming off their Champions League match where they unfortunately conceded a late goal in stoppage time to kill my under, but they did win as an underdog away from home, one straight up. 2-0 leads are always dangerous for the last few seconds because you can get a goal scoring to make it 3-0 to kill the under or to concede late, and they did that, but it was too late for really any sort of other comeback from Sparta Prague. But at this point, Brest have been great. They deserve to be favored against the worst team in the league so far, with real problems in Montpellier. We'll see how long the Tegis Fournier suspension lasts, because if he's not back for this one, I don't think I want to touch Montpellier, and it does kind of push me towards under 2.75 a little bit more. It's very juice right now, might fall to 2.5, but I don't know who's rushing to go bet Montpellier unders at this point, considering how bad their defense has been. The nice part is Stade Brestois are deep. They rotate a lot, but they are off Champions League on the road in Czechia. So that does matter. It's not a really next door trip, though European trips are not that bad compared to the United States, to say the least. But we'll move now to the big matchup of the day, especially I'm wearing a Olympique Lyonnais little practice get up. Lyon currently a goal and a half favorite at home with more juice in the big derby against nearby neighbor Saint Etienne. Over under is 3.25, juice all the way to over. Big clubs with a huge of history in France. Saint Etienne, of course, coming up from Ligue 2 this season, so it's been a grind for them. They haven't been scoring many goals, and really the big problem has been defense so far. It's why Saint Etienne are a goal and a half underdog away from home, and the total is 3.25, and it looks like we might even see 3.5. There is some point to, or some, I think, thing to think about with a derby where you might see the better team at home and their crowd want them to go for it to blow out the other team and embarrass them and send them back to Ligue 2. But I think this match is going to be very, very aggressive. I think it's going to play very intensely. There's going to be a lot of fight in this matchup, and there's a big risk that Lyon take a red card, and that really would lower the scoring output because I think Saint Etienne are going to go prepare to play defensive this entire match, and I think that goes very well for under. So Lyon Saint Etienne, I'll go under 3.25 as my best bet there. We might even get 3.5 before kickoff last match of the day in the French Riviera, southern France, eastern France. I'm not sure exactly how to qualify it, but it's not the Côte d'Azur. So we'll move now to Germany, to the Bundesliga. But before we get out of there, I'll make that big derby, Saint Etienne and Lyon, as my best bet under 3.25 in France. So let's go to the last on our list, and that is not last but not least, the German Bundesliga. Starts with Football Club Augsburg hosting TSG Hoffenheim, who were actually stole a late draw against Lyon, took a 1-0 lead, equalizer from Lyon, fell behind in stoppage time, Alexander Lacazette, and then Hoffenheim fought back to get a draw at home, 2-2. I guess I'll take the win on Lyon's side, especially considering they were a quarter goal favorite at one point, moved to a quarter goal underdog, and that's usually a tell for me, especially if I like that side in general. Hoffenheim, though, they get to go away from home where they've not been strong, and Augsburg do win home games. The big question is, can you trust the Augsburg offense, especially as a quarter goal favorite, especially with all the juice? When this move to a half of a goal, it's going to be hard for me to resist TSG Hoffenheim, even coming off of a Thursday match at home. Fortunately, it was at home and not in France. Over under here is 2.75, just almost all the way to over. Hoffenheim score goals. Their match is see goals. Augsburg don't really score very many, but certainly against Hoffenheim can find some. And a lot of the Augsburg offense comes from really just of high press and forcing turnovers. I don't know what to expect in that regard, but I think I lean most interesting, or I'm most interested in the TSG Hoffenheim getting that quarter of a goal as we speak. VfB Stuttgart then hosts Eintracht Frankfurt. Currently Stuttgart a half a goal favorite at home with more juice on the road team. Eintracht Frankfurt over under 3.25, just a little bit more to under. Frankfurt were bet against pretty heavily midweek. A lot of love for Sparta Prague. Or excuse me, Slavia Prague. Don't want to make the big mistake between the two Prague clubs in the European competitions. But Stuttgart, coming off Champions League, were bet against pretty heavily up until the close. Atalanta then won in Germany. If I'm not remembering that incorrectly, correct me. Feel free to flow that in the comments if I'm wrong at the real_G Warner. Any betting platform or any social media platform, I should have that handle taken. If I don't have it somewhere, please tell me so I don't make sure that this awful handle can be used or exposed by somebody else. With that said, Stuttgart half a goal favorite. That means they have to win. They should have a big crowd behind them, the Cannstatter Kurve, but at this point, Eintracht Frankfurt are an underdog I want to look to back every time they play. I'm not sure that they're going to make my card at only half of a goal, but I mean, that's certainly enough to see a road draw. They've done that against better clubs. And I guess one issue is they're coming off a quick turnaround from playing on Thursday, but fortunately it was at home. And they also rested Ugo Ekitike, who didn't start midweek. He did come on later. We'll see about the status of Marmoush, who seems to be the hottest striker in all of the at least the hottest striker property, and certainly in the Bundesliga, because Harry Kane's very much spoken for and taken. but Frankfurt getting that half of a goal is of interest to me. Total above 3 is very large. There can be goals scored on both sides, but I think I lean to under 3.25 actually, just because I think there's a little bit of a chance that we see a bit more of a stalemate than you'd expect from two good polished offensive teams that might cancel each other out a little bit, trying to take the battles for control of the game and control of the ball, as opposed to the basketball game that's scoring in each end. Last but not least, before we wrap this up with the ultimate best bet, FC Heidenheim, they host VfL Wolfsburg in the nightcap. Heidenheim coming off their Conference League midweek, which is something, I think, but we'll see what ends up happening with kind of their lineup and how that looks. They're currently a pick 'em right now. The juice on Wolfsburg away from home, over under is 2.5, juice more to the under. I think Heidenheim are the side to back here. Wolfsburg, they've been getting a fair amount of respect from the German Bundesliga market, but they haven't really delivered on that. Don't really score goals efficiently. Were able to get by Borussia Dortmund, the big pelt at home in the DFB Pokal, but they had to go to extra time to get that win. I think there's a good chance we see a low scoring output from VfL Wolfsburg, and as a road favorite, that's like almost a guarantee. I want to be against that. I'll be waiting to see if this moves to a quarter goal underdog, but for now, I think I like under 2.5. And I guess I still like Pick'em, especially with the plus odds right now that I'm seeing at BetOnline and SportsBetting.ag sister sites. From the German Bundesliga, before I get to the ultimate best bet, which will be right shortly as soon as I can get my camera ready to go. I'm gonna go with that Eintracht Frankfurt. I'll take that half of a goal for that matchup, big matchup of big name teams in big financial markets in Germany, in Alemania, in Deutschland for this Sunday, November 10th. So before we get to the ultimate best bet, which I'll shout the records and all those things coming up. Want to make sure if you haven't listened to the NFL podcast with A_Schnicker, that's on the feed, and it should be the last podcast right above or right below, depending on which way I should point. To get the NFL picks, we go through a 6-pack of NFL games, all the standalones. You should be covered on that, especially with an early Germany episode coming out, or early Germany game being played. It's the worst teams in the NFL, but whatever. Also, get ready for some more college basketball stuff on here coming forward. We're still trying to figure out what our schedule looks like. But the Need for Seeds college basketball podcast has been added to the pregame.com podcast network. But we're still expecting to do some of our own stuff as well here on this channel. So make sure you subscribe if you're not subscribed already. Apple Podcasts and on Spotify, it's called Betting the Pitch. On YouTube at the real_G Warner, and that's where you can get this ultimate best bet, which will summarize 40 minutes of an episode into a single 1-minute short or reel, depending if we're on YouTube or on Instagram at the real_G Warner on both those platforms, and you can see who I'm picking for my best bets. So now it's time for the ultimate best bet. So trying this a little bit differently today. Let's get into it right now. Hey, this is real_G Warner on Instagram, Patreon, Twitter, and on YouTube. This is the ultimate best bet from Betting the Pitch, the November 10th edition. Went through all 5 European soccer leagues, the biggest ones, pick a best bet from each of the leagues, and then try to improve on an 11-3, 79% record so far this season. Incredible. Not sure I can expect more than that. For England, I like Chelsea getting a quarter of a goal from Arsenal. In La Liga in Spain, I like Mallorca under 2 with Atletico Madrid visiting. Serie A in Italy, I like Napoli under 2.5 goals. And Liga in France, I like Saint Etienne under 3.25 against Lyon, whose shirt I'm wearing. And also in the German Bundesliga, I like Eintracht Frankfurt under a half of a goal. But for the ultimate best bet, like I said, 11-3 and 1, 79% so far this year, trying to get to 80% with this winner. Let's go with Inter Milan hosting Napoli under 2.5 goals. I just don't expect a ton of goals coming. Inter coming off Champions League with Arsenal with a win midweek, Napoli resting, and they're going to play a really tight game on this Sunday afternoon. And that'll do it for this episode. Thank you all for tuning in. I will see you on the next episode coming up next week. Might do an international break window week episode. We'll see. If there are clamors for that, please holler, or we'll get something out for the upcoming NFL season. As always, Tuesday night episodes, unless there's a little schedule conflict like I had this week. But check that out, and we will see you all on the next episode of Betting the Pitch, or at the real_G Warner on Instagram, Patreon, Twitter, and on YouTube.